Welcome back to Boston Center, the chat. Got my chair back. We're settled in. We're good. George Balekji, Kasey Hudson. We'll now get into a little bit NBA free agency and Celtics free agency. First off, so we've seen the Celtics shed $250 million in salaries and tax penalties. We've seen Jrue Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis on the out. We now see Luke Kornet signing with the Spurs. Guys they brought in, Anthony Simons, George Niang, Luka Garza. Yeah, the Celtics got Luka. A different Luka than fans would like to see.
Not the Luka.
Not the Luka. A Luka, exactly. But we also see the frustration coming from Celtics fans all across Twitter as they see the ramifications of being a second apron team. This one is from BGB. Celtics fans expecting something big in free agency to save us. Nothing is going to save us, guys. We don't have money. We don't have assets. This is why most smart fans are saying move Jaylen Brown. Do y'all understand the predicament now? We have 2 max contracts. They have assets, but yes, they don't have the money. From Celtics lead, this is going to be a rough offseason, huh? Rough for sure. I agree with that one. All right, so we're keeping the whiteboards, Case. I want to share, what are the emotions we're going to see from Celtics fans? What do you think you're feeling if you're a Celtics fan?
I went wordy. I made it so obvious I was an emo gal.
I'm going angry face. What is your stop the bleeding?
Stop the bleeding or spend what we don't have.
Yes, and that is the predicament that they're in.
Yeah.
When people talk about predicament.
I love your emoji skills, though.
Thank you. This took us about 7 hours to put together. A lot of art lessons I got from my 7-year-old niece helping me out to put that. This is a team that is dealing with the reality of going all in for a championship, but it was also the timing. If they did what they did.
That's how I feel.
They asleep?
They're just like, meh.
Okay. See, I'm more of the angry. You are the one that's like,
meh.
Just at that point of. Yeah. Just toned out, like they are just like so displaced by the frustrations.
Yeah.
They went all in where they had to give out 2 supermaxes. The second Jaylen Brown got that All-NBA, he was getting supermax. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Mm-hmm. But then trading for Jrue Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis, extending a Jrue Holiday, the money he was getting, if they did everything they did, and the timeline matched up with the maturity of their players, let's go 3 years ago, they would have gotten multiple rings. But they did it right before this new CBA came into the fold. And that's what it is. But they went all in, and at least they won the damn thing. Because you could either be the Celtics right now, or you could be the Phoenix Suns. And you'd much rather be the Boston Celtics that have a ring to show for it, unlike Phoenix, who came up short in the finals by all means, but a team that now is dealing with ramifications of floating too close to the sun, paying way too much, having bad assets like being stuck with the Bradley Beal.
Yeah.
Might have to give Devin Booker upwards of $70+ million a year. Where the Celtics fans stand, you may be frustrated, you may be upset, you may be bored because they're not signing anybody aside for a 2-year, $5.5 million contract, but at least you have a ring, a celebration, a parade, a championship run to look back on.
Yeah, it's like this fine line between appreciation and acceptance. Like, at least you're not far removed from winning a championship, but you've got to ask yourself the big question as a Celtics fan right now. If you make too much splash, if you try to kind of bankrupt yourself to make something make sense for the upcoming season, you're kind of pushing away the hope of the Jason Tatum. You still have a Jason Tatum and a Jaylen Brown on your roster. Yeah. We're just potentially pushing success another 2 years down the stretch here. So some of this plug-and-play movement, some of this stuff that's coming in at very low value, it could be packaged down the line. This is an opportunity for players to come in, not fill the void, but make a case for themselves, up the ante on their value so that they can become more valuable for the Celtics to move on from in February or next year or the year after. Then you get a healthy Jason Tatum. Then you have Jaylen Brown. We see more leadership out of him this upcoming season. And then you see what pieces you actually need to make the return to a championship, because the roster's not far off. Is it daunting? Yes, but it's not far off. So you don't want to do all of this crippling financial gymnastics for something where you still have so much talent on your roster. It's just not available to you at this moment.
When Jason Tatum's back 100% from the torn Achilles, and you have Jaylen Brown in your lineup as well, that is 2 top 20 players, 2 elite wings that can shoot, ball handle, and defend end to end. Every GM in the NBA wants one of them, and they have both. So that's what you build around. Then you have a Derek White, who's a top 30, top 40 player in the league, and is a point guard that affects every facet of the game. Off and on ball defense, ball handling, shooting, playmaking as well. Payne Pritchard, still under contract for a few years. Sam Hauser, still under contract for a few years. We see if he sticks. Like, there are the building blocks there. And then on top of that, the deals they've made of bringing in a George Niang or an Anthony Simons, there's no 100% they're making the Celtics roster come opening night in the NBA or being past the trade deadline. The goal for them is to get below the second apron and stay below it at the end of the upcoming season. So they have up until mid-February to level this all out, but they have the building blocks, and then they could go out and add. So a Luke Cornett goes to the Spurs, which is hard for a lot of Celtics fans to be at peace with, but that's a guy, 4 years, $41 million, played his way out of staying with the Celtics a year after he took a hometown discount to hopefully win another ring. And that's a guy that worked his way from a G League player to a contributor on a championship team, to a legend and beloved by all Celtics fans in Boston, to getting $10+ million a year.
Yeah.
He never in a million years should have gotten that type of payday. And he put himself in another championship situation, being a backup center to Victor Wembanyama. Like, credit to Luke Cornett and everything he did to get to that point. We hear the whispers of Al Horford being favored to land with the Golden State Warriors, where he fits that system, a shooting big that can screen really well. This is now the reset mode. What I love about the Celtics is they're doing it now. They could have lingered. They could have kept going, let's go all in and be a contender. But they picked the reset now and the rebuild now instead of 2-3 years from now, where all the penalties are much worse. Like, I don't need to get into detail, but the longer you stay in that repeater tax, it's not just the more money you're spending, the more it affects your first-round picks, your assets, your draft picks, all your development pieces as well. The Celtics picked a path. What I hate about the NBA in this now, free agency goes from fans being just fans waiting for the big signings. We all have to become lawyers and accountants and litigators. Figuring out the new CBA, what the penalties are, what happens with the second apron. We have to become mathematicians from MIT, figuring out the tax penalties. And it also took a lot of air out of free agency. The biggest signing is a Jaren Jackson Jr. extension to stay with Memphis. But once the dust settles, and it'll take a couple seasons for the Celtics, they will be back to contending. It's just Brad Stevens is hitting reset now and figuring it out now instead of a couple years from now.
Yeah, I feel like I have to take my prep notes to MIT and get them to like approve and confirm everything and every thought process that's taking place to make this make sense. But I think you kind of say something that's most important here, choosing to do the reset now. Doesn't that kind of speak volumes to the support and, let's just say, I don't know, the support and the hope in like the return of Jason Tatum? Like, you hit reset now knowing that your key player is out of the lineup versus trying to do a reset down the stretch, knowing what he brings to the table, knowing what you believe in this roster so far. Like, does that make sense? Am I making sense of that?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's with a Jason Tatum, it's that you just go all in of like, you know where he'll return to be, and especially keep the key pieces. It's being that patient, waiting for him to get back, you know?
Yeah.
And it's also being patient with the Joe Mazzulla to teach these guys his system. It's being patient again. Is a Jordan Walsh close to contributing? Eventually he has to become an NBA player. He's a first-round pick, freak athlete, been learning the system in Maine, and has been on the Celtics bench in the playoff runs. He eventually has to play NBA minutes. It's with the pieces they already have, the pieces coming up. And again, with this roster, it's also the support of the front office that, yes, they're not doing much now, but neither have we seen the Golden State Warriors. For the New York Knicks, outside of Jordan Clarkson signing, which is a big add, another scorer, that piece for them, they haven't done much either. The teams that are contenders, there's some big trades. We see who Cleveland's acquired. We've seen who the Hawks have acquired too. They're going acquisition after acquisition after acquisition to rebuild around Trae Young, but still with it all, this is a team that is sitting, and I think there'll be a move to a move. And Anthony Simons, that's an easy contract to move. Drew Holiday's was difficult, but they found a team dumb enough in the Trail Blazers to take on that deal. Sure, it's for long-term plan and development. We'll see, but that's a lot of money. Simons at 26 years old, $26 million, expiring deal. There's a team out there with a really skilled scorer that wants him. That will be a contract. Instead of getting under by $5 million, you could go from 26 to maybe 15 or 10 million. And then it gets you under even more. By signing Luka Garza, 2 years, $5.5 million, they're just $2 million under the second apron. There's so many moving parts. It's move before the move to set up a move 10 spots down. And this is the first roster we're looking at where Joe Mazzulla is going to be dictating something as fresh of a start for the Celtics. Am I correct on that? Yeah, when he came in, his first year, it was before they got the Drew Holidays and the Kristaps Porzingis. Like, that's Malcolm Brogdon's first and only season with the Celtics. And it's him getting thrusted into that spot right before the season begins. Second year, they go and win the ring, but that's also Marcus Smart, Malcolm Brogdon becoming Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis. Now this year, this is when it becomes real. And for him as a head coach, this is when he has to rebuild himself in a way. Can't go out and just chuck up threes and be one of the highest volume shooting teams. Threes are worth more than two, sure. You have your analytics and what you want to play. But this is where you have to be serious about rebuilding and making it count as well. So this is a massive season for Joe Mazzulla. Because he has to develop, he has to teach his system, And he has to keep everything on track for when Jason Tatum eventually returns.
Yeah, and I asked that for a reason, because maybe that changes the approach of what this team is looking for and how they're looking to revamp everything. Because when it's the coach's first time having full dictation over what this roster is going to look like moving forward, we don't know what speaks to him per se. You mentioned the threes and the high volume, and yes, that is part of the identity we have seen so consistently, but we've seen some things that have to change. We saw things that were tested in the postseason, so it's going to be interesting to see how they move. I said stop the bleeding, but there are guys that could potentially fit the bill. It's going to cost money that we have to figure out how the Celtics can attain to even bring in any other pieces. But who's a name that you would throw on the board to bring in?
Bring the whiteboard back out.
Yeah, bringing the whiteboard back. I thought that we were going to fix the center situation, so this is also where I've got question marks.
I'm going to go quick right here. Mo Wagner. That's an N and an E and an R at the end. And it just looks like Mo Wag.
I can bring clarity to that. My
Center, Mo Wagner.
My spelling was there.
There you go, a little better on that end. But that's someone that is coming off a torn ACL, so maybe could get cheap.
Right.
Would have to use a mid-level exception on him or a trade exception. Again, he costs too much. But if you offload an Anthony Simons, then you bring in a Mo Wagner, and again, would be a patient play. Can trade for him, extend him, could be on the cheap because he's coming off an injury he suffered last December. And when Jason Tatum's back, that's a good center to add. Well, Luka Garza brings, he's a screener, can shoot the three, but I think he's just a G League player at most. You have Nemish Queta. It also could be a guy like, there's DeAndre Ayton out there. I'd rather develop than have a DeAndre Ayton. He'd be a stopgap. Okay. There also is Precious Achiuwa, but again, stopgap center, not a long-term solution at the center spot. So they have all these options, but it also has to make a lot of sense with how much they can afford. Like a Miles Turner, as a fit before second apron,
that's what I was writing down.
Would make so much sense.
For Miles Turner?
That's $30 million a year. He's going to get paid. Celtics cannot afford him. Unless there was a move of a Jaylen Brown, Derek White no longer being with the team, then sure, you can afford a Miles Turner. Would be a fantastic fit for the Celtics too. He's played his way out of being there for Boston. And again, second apron, new CBA, it changed how teams are built. You no longer could just add and throw money everywhere and pay the taxes. It's the repeater tax that makes it real. Every dollar they were over the second apron, the Celtics were paying like 7-8 times that. So really a $1 million contract would add up to being $7 to $8 million is what it would cost them. And so imagine $30 million, what that would do in that threshold. Him alone, just thinking of getting rid of Drew Holiday and going $5 million change, that was $41 million that they saved in tax penalties. That's what it's become in the NBA.
Okay, now I revisit this question because one of the fan reactions on Twitter mentioned this is why you have to move on from a Jaylen Brown. Would you be open to moving on from a Jaylen Brown now?
It would have to be a real elite NBA talent level player, a fit, and there would have to be a lot of draft assets in return. Like? I mean, it would have to be, Desmond Bane's worth 5 firsts. So Jaylen Brown, it starts with 5 first-round picks, and you could say what you want about the value of those. And there would also have to be a all-star levelable, possibly all-NBA levelable player. And again, you're giving up an elite wing. What fits your system? It would have to be a wing of some sort, good ball handler that can shoot and defend. You're not going to get an exact Jaylen Brown in return,
right?
But if you get draft picks, multiple firsts, and a good wing in return, that's something you can do. Teams should try to take advantage of the Celtics being in a do-or-die situation, but it's tough for the Celtics, as they've said, to part with the Jaylen Brown or Derek White. Those are guys that they want to keep.
Yeah, I'm sticking with patience on this one.
So you wouldn't trade a Jaylen Brown?
No, I can understand if you were trying to make a push for this season, obviously that's probably one of your best case scenarios because you have no money to work with and the roster doesn't particularly make sense at the moment. But I'm sticking with patience and let's circle back in 2 years.
Yeah, and that's going to be the real one. And again, we could see guys on the roster like an Anthony Simons, George Niang. Come trade deadline, that's when I expected a Kristaps Porzingis to be moved. It's all about being under the second apron at the end of the next league year, at the end of next season, not before the season begins. They're already in the books. They're already over it. And that's why they have to be under the second apron for multiple seasons as well to get rid of that repeater tax. Again, like we're lawyers. I would be an awful lawyer. We're lawyers, accountants, litigators now.
I wanted to be once upon a time, but...
Too much school for me. I'm good on that.